Imagine who you are right now, but you're trapped in some kind of animal. Like, you could perceive the world, you have all your memories, everything. But you're in like a hedgehog world or some kind of squirrel reality or something like that. You're in that body. Like, what are your main things that you have to do in your life? You'd get bored. You'd get extremely bored, and you'd be like, well, fuck, I gotta do something with all this information, right? So now, see how that has affected the entire world based upon the Western consciousness being that animal body trap. Listening to these Joe Rogan videos talking about psychics and just freely and just openly, just happily talking about the doctors of Nazi Germany. One in particular, then his name was Wayne Schreiber, who was just like the NASA scientist taken from Nazi Germany to start NASA. Dr. Schreiber was the vaccine biochemical scientist that was taken from Nazi Germany over to the Americas to run the vaccine programs. So it's not only the world of things are just messed up. There's an intelligence behind it. It's not only that there's a vaccine program. It's that there's a vaccine program and there has been information that has been directed towards, that have shown that information that has shown vaccines being directed towards a specific group of people. These so-called black and brown peoples or melanated peoples, whoever's in that world of in and around those vaccines, will be affected more so. Your prison industrial complex isn't filled to the max with so-called white people. It's filled to the maximum security, filled to the maximum capacity with the people who are a threat to not only the psychology, but the overall ownership of this land. These are the laws, so-called laws, that these people are living under right now. And beyond that, it's an alchemy. Any of these documentaries that you're watching, especially on the mainstream media, you'll see that every single TV show, every single documentary is from the perspective of the Western mind. You hear that story of, oh yeah, the people who win the wars are the ones who write the history books. So every TV show is a version of that. Every movie, especially in the United States, all these movies come out of Hollywood. Hollywood is the machine for keeping the Western stories alive and shitting all over the original people stories. all the way up into including your trusted flat earthers who just put flat earth in a pretty little bow and packaged it for your mainstream so-called scientific interpretations of reality. And once again, threw your storyline under the bus. Used you. Used all of the information, used all the pictures, used all the stories, used all your support. And as soon as they got on that stage, exactly what they asked for, in a different way, which is how it works, exactly what they asked for. Could care less about what you were talking about. You weren't nothing then, you weren't nothing now. And that's what I'm saying is the whole story with all these truther movements. This is the whole reason why so-called truth only goes so far. Because the mascots for the limitations of truth jump the gun every single time and tell you to try to tell you how you should think. Tell you how you should act. Tell you how you should perceive your reality. And time after time, they consistently pull from the mind control program that supports the privileges that have been passed down to them generations upon generations. This is the macro observation of the subconscious warfare that's existing within the people. It comes out in different ways individually, but that's not my concern. I'm more interested in observing the behavior of all of these different cancers that are popping up in the macro storyline of this reality. Because it's very easy once you remove your attachments to the storyline, then you can ask whatever questions you want. These attachments that people have attachments to topics, people have attachments to theories, people have attachments to ideas. When you're on the internet and social media, people have attachments to their subscribers, just the way their subscribers have attachments to the content creators. So there's all these attachments that are there, and that's the hardest thing to. That's enveloped with the relationship that the individual has with change. Some people don't want to change, and in that space, it will send shockwaves to the rest of the world. It's like, okay, we're shutting this down. No more systems. No more systems will go through this system anymore. So just shut it down. They have chosen to not change anymore, not evolve. And maybe, that's for a particular purpose. It all has a certain timing and everything, but there's the individual space with that and the ups and downs in that space, and then there's the overall, the macro sort of graying out of the experience. This is what I'm saying the Western reality has done overall to all the different types of music of people around the world. It's all been turned into pop experience. What's popular? Pop music. And what's popular is your own removing of you from your original thoughts, original relationships, and installing a so-called new version of reality. That's all Western focus. This is why everything has to be about technology. Everything has to be about the new versions of spirituality, which is, the government, their religion right now is Christianity. And then you have all the other versions of mainstream religions around the world that have the same effect on people in different ways. So even when you're watching your BBC documentary about China, and they're giving you on Netflix, you can watch your documentary about China on there, and you'll see, even when they tell you the stories of China, they have to tell you those stories from the perspective of the European mindset, the European psychology. And in that same storyline, they will tell you the Western mind controls along with that. That's the intention of those documentaries, of Netflix, of the mainstream media, like I said, of Hollywood, the wood of the holly tree, which was the wood that was used to make, and the only wood that was used to make magic wands for the Druidian people, the Druids. Not getting into this right now, but that's the whole. This is an alchemy, and that's what I'm saying is first and foremost in this whole warfare. People have to see how they are their own weapons against themselves first, before you start to talk about any kind of revolution or any kind of warfare. Start seeing how your own people around you, your own soldiers, your own, even your own enemies, see how your own enemies are, how they are their own enemies to themselves. So use their own weaknesses against them. This is kind of like what this channel does, is to see all the obvious bullshit that's out there to make you believe a certain thing in society. Take it and just tell it from the perspective of like the obviousness that, people can see on a regular, at least people around in my inner circles. That's how much I can say of, what I'm saying. And then other people wherever around the world are going to say, yo, I get that. That makes sense to me. And then eventually, you have all the resources to research on your own. So eventually these pieces are going to be starting to get put together and start to make sense. So yeah, so this goes down to the relationships that you have to the experience overall. And every single moment of the day, there is a story that is being told to maintain a psychology that needs to be maintained to maintain the enslavement on the macro scale. Every single day. So you can see in this video right now, Joe Rogan, the government's experiments with psychics, how accepted this government hopelessness, this anti-revolution hopelessness is that's out there. I heard this on another video. Somebody was saying there's a thing called an MG-TOE. I think it's an acronym for I can't remember what it is, but it's basically what it stands for. It's something about men separating from women and just like being about their, I'm not even going to try to paraphrase it, but from what the guy I was listening to on there, because I only heard a little quarter of one video, and it wasn't worth for me to go anymore, because then he started talking about his Christian beliefs and all that other stuff. And but it started out with spiritually separating from the attachments to the matriarch in order to make a closer relationship with the patriarch, and observing patterns and all this other stuff. And then I don't know if he went into that, but he just started using examples of Jesus. But the whole point was, people need these movements. They need all that bullshit. They need something to grab onto. And basically people are just guessing and following hashtags around. and not really going to the depths of the origins of the cancer of this hopelessness that looks in the eyes of Joe Rogan sitting on the blood and the bones of the ancestors on stolen land, still talking about distractive stories about his stupid ass government and what these CIA investigators find out. Like all their late ass information gets told to Joe Rogan. This is what I was saying. Just imagine that you were you inside of like a hedgehog consciousness, a hedgehog body, but you were still your own personal consciousness right now. That would slow down your experience. Like you would go, like something would be fucked up with you. Like this is why people are all in the world right now being heavily medicated and sick, because this is the sickness. It is the Western psychology is the disease. It's the source of the separation from any kind of balance and harmony that you can have on a natural scale. Not saying you turn it into a fucking religion and be all like, oh yeah, let's all follow the fucking Pleiadian galaxy and all these aliens and all these people. No, quit looking for Disney storylines and start handling the situation from those higher perspectives. Don't use the information to create a Disneyland. Use the information to learn more about yourself and turn it in, at least turn that information inward so you can see a brighter picture or a bigger picture at least of the outer side, like what's going on and how what's going on right now got to where it is. Like I said before, are we at all paying attention to the future generations, or are we only focusing on our little like bubbles of reality right now? When you really think about it, you're not going to live that long. Between like me being born in the 80s, the early 80s, now, 36 years old. Let's say I have another, even if I had another 80 years to live, which I hope not, fucking 80 years. But even if I had another 80 years to live, that's a little blip in time for shit that could be done in reference to the bigger picture. Like you can do so, and that's the whole storyline that the system wants you to do. Focus on the smallest picture so they can remain gods and kings over the larger pictures. So keep you focusing on the reproduction karmic cycles. Keep you focusing on love. Keep you focusing on like music and all the arts and the color, the bright colors of the earth experience. The bright colors and the beautiful music of, excuse me. So that's the advertisement. That's the commercial for the overall, the realm level mind control. So the smallest version, the Western version of mind control is just, it's a mirror image of the realm version of mind control. It has to get to the depths of the realm itself. So like the realm, it will create an entire world, a bubble for you to be trapped in. They called it heliocentrism. They called it the Western New World. They called it colonialism. They called it freedom, democracy, capitalism. They called it whatever you wanted it to be called based upon what they told you it should be about, because they told you what it shouldn't be about. That was the thing. It shouldn't be about how you are and how your people were. They were primitive and savage. It should be like the way we are. Look at this technology. So they shifted your perspective and said, "Ooh, look at this shiny shit over here. You can't even see your soul. You can't see your spirit. You can see this sword, bitch." And then they just sliced everything up and then killed everybody and said, "Oh, well, it's the survival of the fittest, just like the animal kingdom." And then they televised that. They studied the whole world and said they were going around the world to study. But they were just looking at animals, and they were just looking at land so they can share their perspectives of the lands to mind control the entire masses. Like I said, even when you watch a documentary about China, like 7 or 8 episodes series about China, You're hearing it from the perspective of the European mind. So you don't have any information that is of any kind of consciousness outside of the mind control itself, the Western mind control itself. Not even getting into the realm, the mind control of the realm. So you have these chemical mind controls that get triggered by the Western mind controls that exist inside your body and your mind and your psyche. And they create blocks and walls in your spirit and so on and so forth. So the way you perceive the moon based upon these assholes jumping around and playing golf on it takes the spiritual and psychological interpretations, intelligence, that relationship, and puts it in a box in a shelf somewhere and calls it laughable. It calls it, non-existent, basically. So, and then now what exists to you, instead of looking at this picture right now in a bright green image with these two authority figures in your face, Joe Rogan and a CIA representative of some kind of way named Annie Jacobson, they're supposed to be these smart people. They represent the intelligence of the empire, the intelligence of today, the intelligence of the status of society. So when they are talking about something like this and they show an image like that, a totally fake image, created image, but it's in your face as being real, that creates a disconnect with you. And for one example, it creates a sort of short-circuiting with your spiritual relationship that you have with the interpretations, at least, of like the basic nature of this reality, like the sun, the moon, the earth, the water, the basic elemental functions here, and their spiritual representations of it. When you see this dusty ass Hollywood set that they're calling the moon as the moon, and these goofy ass fucking people showing pictures like they're jumping around on the moon in their little spacesuits, that does something to you. And what I'm saying is that it does the same thing to you that you would feel like if you were trapped inside of an animal's body, but you were your same kind of consciousness. So this is the same kind of thing that goes along with what I was saying before about even the definition of humanity. You have no definition of what a human is. This is why it's thrown out there like that. This is why language is the thing that ties your whole consciousness in knots and locks you out and doesn't allow you to even change or grow. You become stagnant and content with nothingness. So they've created an entire world and an entire universe of nothingness, born out of nothing, going to nothing, will always be dumber than everything. That's why all your aliens have this higher technology. That's why you have all these alien movies, because they want you to focus on higher technology, space. This is why you have Star Trek, Star Wars, Stargate. All this shit that's out there is to talk about subconsciously and consciously technology. And that is your focus. Everybody wakes up every morning and when they go to work to push along the evolution of Western technology, because that is the highest focus that they want you to focus on. All of them, the entire world. So that's that distractive reality that we're consumed by every moment of the day. Like I said, think about this. You have millions and millions of so-called non-white people being inundated with hours upon hours upon thousands upon thousands of hours of so-called white people being flashed in their reality, constantly flashed images over and over and over and over again. There's your first example of so-called not so-called racism, the system of racism, white supremacy. Add up the hours. Everybody's cool with all these. They always want to investigate all these numbers and all this stuff because you got the internet. You can find out whatever you want. So find out this information. Research the amount of hours per day the average non-white person is put under, that is focused only on European perspectives or European people. European perspectives and European people. How many hours per day does the average non-white person get flickered in any kind of, including everything? Billboards, TV, social media, TV shirts. Yeah, TV shirts, like clothing, everything. How many hours? You'll find out that it's their entire lives, down to the very way they perceive themselves in this reality. They don't even know who they are. They are more of that flicker rate image that adds up to the hours of their perception within this reality than they know of themselves. They don't know who they are. They know what they have told to be, what they've been conditioned to be, and have no relationship with yesterday, today, or tomorrow. Their entire relationship with time has been given to them by the Western world. How old they are is representative of how many times this heliocentric Earth this spherical Earth has gone around the sun in this heliocentric universe. That's how they perceive what they call age in this time of their life. Their name is written in all capitals, in all capital letters, to designate them as a corporation. In the Western world, that was created when their ancestors were originally slave auctioned off to create the buildings that built the technology that people use today. In the industrial age, slaves were used to build the White House. Slaves were used to build the industry of the industrial age. Now you're in the technology that has been built on top of the blood and the bones of all of those industrial ages. And now everybody's gone to sleep because they have everything's now been automated, including their consciousness. So you can't even ask questions about the reality because the authority figures that, like these dopey ass faces like Joe Rogan and this lady, these dopey assholes, you have something inside of you like a parasite that makes you believe them and think that whatever they're saying has some kind of sense of authority. Why? Because you have 9,552 million kajillion 387,000 hours of information pumped into your reality that says you need to trust these people. You need to listen to what they say. In fact, everything that they're saying is more important than what you even believe. Like you need to believe them before you even believe your own intuition, before you believe your own self. So they will come from the perspectives that are created by the same establishment that they claim to be against. They will give you what you're supposed to be thinking. The same way the documentaries on television will tell you about a certain thing from their perspective, and then that becomes your perspective. Imagine how the Europeans would have felt when they were chopping their way through the Chinese northern rainforest or the northern forest, and all of this is new to them. Imagine, like these these Europeans, they just, like, they were just frolicking through the fucking forest and just discovering and just writing, drawing pictures. This is where they make all these Western books or Western movies. Like these old Western people were just frontiers, and all these people, all the Europeans coming over here. They just read, like, they was just walking over the land with notebooks and shit, like drawing pictures of trees and sea otters and bears and like buffalo. They think that that's the story they want to tell. Like they were just these pilgrims. Get the fuck out of here. Of course they're gonna tell that story. They're gonna put their own people that represent the comfort, totally comfortable, hopeless. That's what so-called white people represent in the consciousness around the world. Totally comfortable with being enslaved. Totally happy and hopeless with being enslaved because it was their ancestors that created the system of happiness and comfort for them today. But it ain't as comfortable as it used to be, so now they have to say something about it. But when it was comfortable for them and was fucked up for us, you hear a fucking word out of their mouths. Until they got put on Front Street. Then the hippie movement came out. And that was televised to the rest of the world. And that was a pressure relief valve to the rest of the world. And say, oh, okay, well, at least they all aren't that way. At least and maybe there's a little drop of a possibility that we are all the same people and all this other. So they bought into that bullshit. Meanwhile, nothing changed. Over the next 50 years, it's only gotten worse. And now you have people today doing the same fucking thing they did 50 years ago. Telling you not to talk about what you need to be talking about because you should be talking about what they are talking about, which is talking about fixing the system and how all of this shit is just part of, you know, a spiritual journey, and we should just focus our energy on focus our attention on energy and peace and harmony and unity. All these empty ass words. There's no action in love. It's an actionless word when you're talking about the macro storyline in the whole world of revolution and information, so-called truth. But anytime people are saying love, you might as well be saying like Jesus. It's the same shit. It's a fucking made up word. For what? To represent some kind of action, some kind of thought, some kind of feeling, some kind of movement of some kind. And what I'm saying is that people get distracted. They don't go into the action, the movement, the information, the psychology of that. They sit around trying to create a corporation around the fucking word. This is what your entire social media, internet psychosis is. It's so far from reality that these people will literally tell you that they're scientists, they're people that they love and cherish, and they're all protecting the science community, that they literally came from the people, the enemies that they claim to be against in the world wars. So you are being run by the enemies of the original world war that you claim to be against. Like, what the fuck? You're scientists for the vaccines that are in your politics right now, the original ones from Nazi Germany. Flat Earth that was taken to Congress and said they will create videos that will disconnect, that will keep you from finding out about Flat Earth. NASA, created by Nazi Germany. Or run by Nazi Germany. Werner von Braun. This is all one storyline being told 1,000 different ways. And people are like, oh yeah. No, it's the Jews. Get the fuck out of here. This shit is too fucking simple, man. Like, oh yeah, it's the Jew. No matter what you say, somebody gonna be in that conversation. Until you be 99 years old. You like, oh. You talk for 3 hours and somebody will come walking up to you. Hey, it's the Jews. If you don't get your simple ass out of here, what the fuck? That's like somebody going around in a Batman movie and then walking up to Batman and saying, hey, Batman, you know what's going on around the world? Or at least in Gotham City? Yeah. You know what's going on? Hey, it's the Joker. Yeah, the Joker's doing it. And Batman's like, if you don't get the fuck out of my face... This is what's happening right now on the internet. And then people are just like, yeah, that's right, totally. They run the news. They run the media. They run all this stuff. So, and then you're like, okay, man, that's obvious. This is what I'm saying. This is a kindergarten consciousness and keeping people in an animalistic version of reality. Only focus on empty things like, okay, so you, like I said, I don't want to go back to this animal thing. This is the thing. People can't prove the difference between animals and humans. People cannot prove. This is the thing. People cannot prove the difference between the average human and the animal kingdom. So all of your, at least come from the perspective, don't get personal like the individual, like, oh, I have the answers of that. I'm gonna get in the comment section. No. Fast keys. I'm talking about the Western identity of what humanity is supposed to be like. When you go around and you see these billboards about, reproduction, babies, and these food, it's all about food. Basically, everything is about food, reproduction, and your primal survival needs. That's it. So like I was saying in the beginning of this video, how is that different than you being entrapped inside of like a squirrel's body or a groundhog body? There's no difference. So what I'm saying is that the difference is the responsibility of the individual. And if you've been conditioned to not take on that responsibility by the system, then you have been, your whole relationship with the spirit and everything else around that in this entire realm has been taken and turned into the Western realm. So if all of your focus and time and everything is channeled through just your survival instincts, well, first of all, you've been turned into an animal. Second of all, you've been sucked into another kingdom. And now that you've been sucked into that kingdom, you now have a new God and a king over your reality. And everything after that will just follow on. And that's where we are right now. So today's version of God is science, at least on the most unifying factor of what people call humanity. It's science. Like, they cherish and worship all the dumbass shit. They worship, war and destruction. Even in this other video where Joe Rogan was talking about the CIA military part, where they have people just going around taking people out, like outside of the military, and he's proud of it. Like, people like G.I. Joe Rogan, people like him are like proud of that. Like, yep, Things you just gotta do to keep America on top, you know? You just gotta get those CIA military people out there and just go take out those people like Gaddafi. And as long as you want to keep technology and science on the top of the human evolutionary spectrum, then you gotta get out there and kill a whole bunch of fucking people who are in charge of the rest of the countries. And that's what Joe Rogan is, a fucking piece of shit.